This is Fothentic History.
Hi, and welcome to the show. I'm Holly Fry.
And I'm Brian Young.
And Brian, you know, one of the most terrifying and intriguing figures in galactic history is, of course, Mother Talzin.
Yeah, she's terrifying. I mean, have you listened to her voice?
Yes. Is it weird that I like it? So she was the clan leader of the mystical Night Sisters, and with her silver eyes and her pale white skin and dark facial markings and these crimson robes that she wore, she really cut an intimidating figure. And she also indirectly influenced a number of events during the Clone Wars that had ripple effects throughout the galaxy.
So we don't know much about Talzin's early life. She hailed from Dathomir, that much we know, and she usually stayed on the planet, as it was where the Night Sisters' magic was most powerful and concentrated. As the Old Republic crumbled and the machinations that would eventually lead to the rise of the Galactic Empire played out, Talzin lived her life in the Night Sisters' coven on Dathomir, one of the most talented witches among them.
And the Night Sisters lived in their own society, separate from the men of Dathomir. And the men, who were also known as Night Brothers, were subjugated by the Night Sisters, and they were only contacted by the Coven when they were needed to further the population or for use in service of the dominant Night Sisters.
Becoming a member of the Night Sisters was no small feat. In addition to rigorous training in the use of magic, Night Sisters had to face incredible trials. One of these involved battling with a powerful water creature known as the Sleeper. If a young woman was able to subdue the Sleeper and bring a piece of its body back to the Night Sisters, she would become a Night Sister herself, and that trophy would be used in the working of their clan's magic. If the initiate failed in her mission, it was a mortal failure, as the Sleeper would drag those who could not defeat it into the depths to their deaths.
And we point all this out because we really want to accent that for her part, Mother Talzin was an incredibly powerful Night Sister, so she was really a force to be reckoned with. And it was due to that immense power that the Sith Lord Sidious became interested in her abilities and how he could use them to further his own agenda. She was the Night Sisters' clan mother, as well as the shaman of their culture on Dathomir.
She once told Count Dooku of the Night Sisters, our loyalty is reserved for only each other. But one of the most fascinating things about Talzin was how she could be so completely devoted to her coven and also willing to manipulate and sacrifice individuals from her people under the justification of the greater good. Her machinations were often so complex that it was impossible to see her end game.
For example, when Asajj Ventress was an infant, Talzin gave that infant up, admittedly under duress, to the Sinatine pirate Halstead. And the details of this deal are really unclear, but it appears that the Sinatine wanted the infant in exchange for the safety of the women of Dathomir.
Asajj eventually made her way back to Dathomir, having seen the Sinatine murdered, having trained with the Jedi, and as serving as Dooku's apprentice, right up until he attempted to kill her. And when Ventress returned to her coven, believed by Dooku to have died, Talzin assured her that her sacrifice was never forgotten.
At that point, Talzin helped Asajj prepare to assassinate Dooku for revenge, and she sent her to the task with the assistance of two other Night Sisters, Nalith and Kareth. And Talzin used her magic to create an invisibility spell for this trio. Despite these efforts, the mission was unsuccessful. Dooku, though he was taken by surprise, was able to best Ventress and her sisters.
Talzin, ever the manipulator, took advantage of Dooku's sense of vulnerability, his belief that the Jedi had been the ones behind the attack, and his fresh lack of an apprentice, and offered to help him by giving him a new apprentice. And this time she offered one of Dathomir's Night Brothers, and Dooku took the bait.
Mother Talzin promised Dooku an apprentice as powerful as Darth Maul, and she offered up Savage Opress, who had been hand-picked from the Night Brothers by Asajj Ventress after a series of cruel and grueling tests.
But before giving Opress over to Dooku, she and the Night Sisters cast a spell on the Night Brother. They augmented his strength and basically programmed him to be loyal to the Night Sisters above all others. This was, of course, yet another assassination attempt on Dooku's life cooked up by Talzin.
So that assassination attempt, once they had sent him off and all of those wheels had been in motion, once again failed, and in a crucial moment during the attack, Savage Opress betrayed Asajj Ventress by failing to obey her. And only Opress returned directly to Dathomir. Asajj went into hiding before returning to Talzin. And whether she sensed that Savage had betrayed Ventress or not at this point is unknown, but Mother Talzin sent Savage Opress on a mission to find his brother, Darth Maul, in order that Maul might teach him to be a true warrior.
As dedicated as Mother Talzin was to her work on Dathomir, it wasn't her exclusive focus. During the Clone Wars, she also looked for additional ways to expand her power in this really old dark magic in the Force. She always contended that she was not Force-sensitive, though, but instead had a connection to this dark magic. She thought, though, that if she could harness a connection to the living Force, she could augment her already impressive abilities.
And she found a potential source of living Force connectivity in the form of Queen Julia of Bardata. And by the time she turned her gaze to the Queen as her next victim, a group known as the Frangal cult had already been doing her bidding on Bardata. Through their work, the Force-sensitive branch of the Bardatan government, known as the Dagoyan Order, had already been targeted.
The Frangal, who referred to Talzin as Great Mother, had been kidnapping the Dagoyan masters and draining the Force from their bodies, transferring it to a special sphere Talzin had given them as a receptacle. She used that stolen living Force to bolster her physical form, which seemed to require a steady stream of magic to maintain.
Queen Julia had an exceptionally strong connection to the living Force, so naturally, Talzin wished to drain her as well. Fortunately for the monarch, renowned Jedi Master Mace Windu and the Gungan Jar Jar Binks had tracked Talzin as she had abducted the queen, and they intervened as this ritual was being carried out.
While Windu battled the Night Sister, Binks freed the queen, and in a moment that made his clumsiness an asset rather than a liability, he inadvertently destroyed the containment sphere. Talzin, bested, transformed into a green mist and vanished.
So going back to this thread of assassination, eventually, after that second failed assassination attempt on Dooku's life, Ventress did make her way home, and she reunited with her Night Sisters. And as part of her welcome, Talzin baptized her as a reborn witch of Dathomir, and Asajj denounced her ties to the Sith.
Not long after her arrival, though, General Grievous and a droid army, under the direction from Count Dooku, launched a full-scale attack on Dathomir, and this was as a retaliatory move for the attempt on Count Dooku's life. Grievous's formidable forces struck hard against the Night Sisters, so much so that Talzin turned to Daka, the oldest and wisest of their clan, for help.
In summoning Daka from her hidden cave, Talzin actually sealed Daka's fate. Daka had this incredible power. She had the ability to resurrect the dead, and it was that power that Mother Talzin needed. She hoped that Daka would summon an undead army to help Asajj Ventress, who was fighting as the de facto general for the Night Sisters. Daka was able to activate a zombie battalion of deceased Night Sisters.
As the new reinforcements assisted Ventress on the battlefield, Talzin created an effigy doll of Dooku using a lock of his hair. While Grievous and Asajj were locked in lightsaber combat, Talzin used her magic to torture Dooku using her doll. Dooku was terrified that Talzin would kill him with her magic, so he ordered Grievous to abandon the fight against Asajj and to kill Talzin. Grievous found the hidden cave and killed Daka, stabbing her with a lightsaber, but Mother Talzin vanished in a flash of green mist.
The magic of both Daka and Talzin was broken at that point. The entirety of the Night Sisters clan was killed in this battle, with the exception of Ventress. Mother Talzin appeared to Asajj once the battle had concluded, and she told her that she must continue on her own path, separate from the witches, but she did not tell Asajj of the mission that she had given Savage Opress. And it's unclear exactly what happened to Talzin at that time, and why she appeared to Ventress only as an apparition and not in her physical form.
It appears that not long after sending Asajj Ventress away, Mother Talzin, who stayed on Dathomir even after it was completely scorched by Grievous, turned her attention once more to Savage Opress. She guided him as he sought his lost brother, using her magic to communicate with him across the vast distance he'd traveled.
And though it had been approximately 10 years since Maul's defeat at the hands of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and most people thought he was dead, but Mother Talzin sensed that he was not, Savage did manage to find him on the trash planet of Lotho Minor. And at this point, Maul was a terrifying hybrid creature, the top half of his body joined with an arachnid-style body made of junk and held together with the Force.
How Maul got that way and how he got to Dathomir is a bit of a mystery, but if you put 2 and 2 together, I mean, obviously he probably got taken out with the trash on Naboo after Obi-Wan Kenobi had cut him in half. And Dathomir is near the Naboo system. So maybe that's just their garbage dump, which is why Naboo is so pristine.
That would make sense.
But it was very clear that Maul's years of isolation on the junk world had taken a toll on his mental state. He was defensive and confused and behaved like a feral animal when a press found him.
But Savage managed to get his brother back to the destroyed and burned out Dathomir, where Mother Talzin was waiting for them. The Night Sister was not at her full level of power, having been depleted by the events of the battle with Grievous and his army, but she summoned her remaining strength and magic to pluck the damage from Maul's psyche, and construct a pair of mechanical legs for him that were more humanoid and not so much like a giant spider.
Talzin paid a heavy price in restoring her son and working her magic. Talzin paid a heavy price in restoring her son. In working her magic without any other Night Sisters to assist, she was depleted to the point where she could no longer maintain a physical form. But even from the spirit realm, Talzin was able to instruct Maul and Savage and urge the formation of a group called the Shadow Collective, which combined the forces of the Night Brothers with powerful criminal organizations including Black Sun, Death Watch, the Hutt Clan, and the Pike Syndicate. Talzin's goal was to leverage the strength of the group to finally exact revenge on Sidious.
She is very revenge-driven.
Yeah.
This formidable coalition was able to overthrow the Mandalorian government, though Maul and a press were betrayed by Pre Vizsla, who then had them imprisoned. The two Night Brothers were able to escape prison, kill Vizsla, and then stand as leaders over Mandalore.
This move did not go unnoticed. It attracted both the attention and the ire of Darth Sidious, who had no interest in seeing the brothers rise to a level of power that could in any way rival his own. And so Sidious traveled to Mandalore to confront the problem. He fatally impaled Savage Opress and kidnapped Darth Maul.
Sidious then imprisoned Maul on the icy outer rim planet of Stygian. As he tortured his captive, Sidious realized that it was Talzin's magic that had resurrected the former Sith apprentice. But Sidious, of course, had already moved on from Maul, and he had taken Count Dooku as his new apprentice.
When Maul escaped, thanks to the intervention of Death Watch commandos, led by Gar Saxon, Sidious, wanting to destroy the powerful Night Sister, decided that he could use Maul in a game of cat and mouse to lure Talzin out of hiding. His intent was to end her dangerous and threatening magic and power, and her connection to him as he rose to be Emperor once and for all.
So when Maul reached out to Talzin, as Sidious had hoped he would, the Night Sister surmised the intended deception, and she assumed that the Sith Lord had allowed Maul's escape. She also made clear to Maul that they must be just as illusory in their dealings as Sidious. But she and Maul were already several steps ahead of the Dark Lord. At least it appeared so. Maul's efforts to accrue power by allying with the Mandalorians and Black Sun had in fact been a lure that Mother Talzin had wanted to draw out Sidious.
Instead of allowing Maul to return to her and play into Sidious's plan, Talzin instructed him to go to the Black Sun stronghold on Ord Mantell. She promised that while she would not be there, she would send help from Dathomir. Maul, obedient to his mother, went to Ord Mantell to prepare for a battle with the Sith. And true to her word, Mother Talzin sent help, in the form of a battalion of Night Brother warriors to aid Maul in the fight.
Dooku and Grievous, working for Sidious, believed that the transport that carried the Night Brothers to Ord Mantell was actually Mother Talzin going to Maul's aid. So they first launched an air assault to get the Ord Mantell teams damaged, and then they proceeded to attack on the ground, hoping to snare Talzin.
But Talzin had predicted these moves. She'd devised a battle strategy with Maul that played out perfectly and resulted in both Grievous and Dooku being captured in the battle. Maul and Mother Talzin wished to use their hostages as leverage against Sidious, who had wronged both of them.
Sidious didn't really seem to care about this plan, and he told Maul he could execute both Dooku and Grievous. What a charmer, that kid. But instead, Maul and Talzin made an offer to Count Dooku. to eschew the Sith, join forces with them, and all overthrow Sidious together.
It was during this exchange that Talzin also revealed to Dooku her previous dealings with Sidious. The Sith Lord had gone to Dathomir to meet Talzin and to exchange each of their unique pieces of information about the dark side of the Force. Eventually, Sidious told Talzin that he intended to make Talzin his apprentice, but things didn't play out that way. Sidious instead took Talzin's flesh and blood, her son, Maul, and trained him as his apprentice instead of the Night Sister.
This negotiation that Mother Talzin was attempting to make with Dooku for a partnership was interrupted by the arrival of Obi-Wan Kenobi, leading a team to take down both Maul and the Separatists at Ord Mantell in one fell swoop. That was a move that had the potential to end the Clone Wars. Dooku agreed to join Maul, at least in fighting off the Jedi, and Obi-Wan's fellow Jedi Master Tipley was killed by Dooku in the ensuing skirmish.
When the Jedi were reinforced by additional Republic troops, Maul and Dooku escaped together and headed to Dathomir. But en route, Maul accused Dooku of agreeing to the alliance as part of a larger plan on Sidious's part, and once again took him captive to deliver him to Mother Talzin.
So Talzin's plan was to eliminate Dooku as a punishment to Sidious, but she also intended to draw Dooku's life force from him so she could once again take material form. She had, as we mentioned, given up a great deal of herself in order to resurrect Maul. And for his part, Sidious had also gone to Dathomir, having tracked Dooku's movements, and he was waiting in orbit for his moment to strike.
By the time Sidious landed on Dathomir, intending to confront Maul and Talzin, Dooku had been weakened to the point that Talzin was able to possess his body. Sidious was able to cast Talzin's spirit out of the body of his apprentice, but the witch, having absorbed much of the Count's life force, materialized in her form.
Talzin and Sidious immediately became locked in battle, closely matched in their use of Force lightning. Maul lent his strength to Talzin, and Dooku similarly stood at his master's side once he had regained consciousness and was able to stand.
But when Separatist forces amassed at Ord Mantell during the fight to attack in support of Dooku and Grievous, Maul's Mandalorian allies were forced to retreat. They insisted that Maul join them, but he was reluctant, wishing to stay and fight the Sith with Talzin.
Talzin's priority in this do-or-die moment was to save her son Maul. So when he would not heed her directive to run to his ship, she actually force-pushed him onto the ramp where his Mandos were awaiting him. As Maul fought to escape the grip of the warriors who held him tight and urged him onto the ship, he witnessed General Grievous driving not one, but 2 lightsabers into Mother Talzin's chest. So her final act was actually sacrificing herself to save Darth Maul.
It makes you wonder, though, because she was able to... there were times where she didn't have a corporeal form. If this is a complete elimination of her existence completely, or if maybe she's still in that dark magic ether somewhere.
Maybe, although this was a case where, according to eyewitness accounts, unlike previous incidents where she had been kind of, not doing great in battle and she would turn to mist and kind of vanish, there was actually a corporeal burned out corpse at this point. So it was the one time when there was really some evidence that she had, in fact, been killed.
Yeah, well, the Force works in mysterious ways.
That's true. And Dathomir's inherent connection to the Force and to magic remained. It certainly came into play later in galactic events, but Mother Talzin's part in it was just over at this point. At least it appeared. Yeah,
there was that time where Darth Maul, in seeking his revenge against Obi-Wan Kenobi, had sort of tapped into that dark magic that centered on the Dathomiri nest there of Night Sisters.
Yeah. But that's Mother Talzin's part of the story anyway. At least as we know it. As with any historical piece of information, there is always a possibility that additional archives or documents or evidence can be unearthed, and then new parts of the puzzle will be added.
Yeah. So we don't have any listener mail today.
No.
Do you Do you want to tell people where they can find you, Holly?
Yes! You can find me on Twitter as @surliestgirl. You can also follow my other daytime grown-up job podcast, which is Stuff You Missed in History Class. And you can interact with us there at missedinhistory.com, which will take you to all of our social media presences. And then I do this with you.
And you do the Full of Sith podcast with me.
Yeah, I do
also,
that too.
And Mike Pilot.
You've got to be so tired of me at this point.
Never. If you want to get a hold of us at all, you can go to fothentichistory.com or catch us on Twitter at Fothentics, or go to facebook.com/Fothentichistory. You can leave us a message any of those ways. But the way we prefer the most is the contact form on the Fothentic History website. And if you want to, we would greatly appreciate it if you reviewed us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Did you have anything else, Holly?
No, just thanks for listening.
Yeah, well then until next time, the Force will be with you. Always.